Hello guys, welcome back. Or if it's your first time here, welcome to History at Sleep, the place where history slows down and the past becomes a quiet story to fall asleep to. Tonight, we're going somewhere cold, really cold. A world without electricity, without heating, without even glass windows. Just wind, wood, and willpower. This is the story of how medieval peasants survived the coldest nights. So, lie back, close your eyes, and imagine the sound of snow falling softly outside a wooden cottage, the faint hiss of a dying fire, and somewhere in the dark, the steady breathing of a family huddled together for warmth. The year is 1350. A small village lies tucked between hills, its thatched roofs hidden under a blanket of frost. The fields are silent now. No harvest, no plough, no sound but the wind. Inside one of the cottages, a dim orange light flickers. It comes from a small open hearth, where a few tired embers are being coaxed back to life. Someone kneels beside it, a peasant wrapped in rough wool and patched linen. Their hands are cracked from work, their breath misty in the cold air. They blow gently on the embers. A spark glows, then another. A faint flame rises, licking the sides of a blackened pot. The air smells of smoke and damp straw. It's not pleasant, but it's familiar. It's the smell of survival. Around the room, shadows move slowly. A woman mending torn sleeves by the firelight. A child rubbing their hands to stay warm. An old man whispering a prayer before bed. Every sound feels softer in the winter, as if the world itself is holding its breath. Outside, the snow thickens. Inside, the fire finally catches. And for a moment, the room feels almost warm. The fire burns low now. It crackles quietly, sending thin fingers of smoke curling toward the roof. The warmth doesn't spread far. Only a small circle around the hearth feels safe from the chill. But in the Middle Ages, people learned to make that warmth last. There were no thick blankets filled with feathers, no hot water bottles, no flick of a switch to call back the sun. So they layered, wool over linen, cloak over tunic, shawl over shoulders. Even in bed, they wore most of what they owned. The beds themselves were simple, a wooden frame filled with straw. The straw was changed only a few times a year, and by winter it was rough, dusty, and full of the faint smell of earth. But when you're freezing, even that feels soft. Families didn't sleep alone. They couldn't afford to. The body's warmth was its own kind of fire. Parents slept beside children, grandparents nearby, sometimes even the animals, a pig or a hen or a dog, brought inside to share their heat. It wasn't strange. It was survival. In the dimness, they whispered prayers before sleep. Not for riches, not for food, just for a night without sickness, and a morning when the fire would still be alive. The wind rattles the shutters. Snow slips through the cracks in the roof. The world outside is frozen solid. But inside that small, smoky room, there's the faint rhythm of breathing, a fragile peace holding out against the dark. Hours pass slowly. The fire fades to ash. A rooster stirs too early, fooled by the moonlight, and the peasant dreams of spring, of sunlight, of warmth that feels almost impossible. Surviving winter began long before the snow ever fell. By late autumn, every peasant knew what was coming. The signs were everywhere. Birds flying south, the days shrinking faster, the air sharpening like a blade. Winter was never a surprise. It was a test, and every family had to prepare for it, like soldiers before a battle. Throughout the harvest months, they worked from sunrise to sunset. Every grain mattered. Every piece of firewood, every turnip pulled from the soil, every cabbage packed into clay jars for storage. In the corner of each cottage stood the winter larder, a small space filled with dry goods, onions braided together and hung from the rafters, baskets of root vegetables buried under sand to keep them from rotting, and a few pieces of salted or smoked meat wrapped in cloth. If a family was lucky, there might be a wheel of hard cheese or a jar of honey from the summer's hives. But most nights, dinner was simple, a thin stew of barley and whatever vegetables survived the frost. Sometimes a scrap of bacon would turn the whole meal into a feast. They cooked over the open fire, using heavy iron pots blackened by years of smoke. The stew simmered slowly, the smell filling the single room. It wasn't rich, but it was warm, and warmth in winter was worth more than taste. Fuel was precious too. Wood had to be gathered and dried months before the first snow. If you burned it too soon, it smoked instead of warming. So people rationed it carefully, burning only what they needed, banking the fire each night, covering the embers with ash so that they would still glow by morning. Every task, every choice was about endurance. The goal was not comfort, it was survival. And as the wind howled across the thatched rooftops, the village sank into a kind of stillness, a waiting that could last for months. Morning comes slowly in winter. The sky turns grey long before the sun appears, and the first light feels tired, as if it too struggles to wake. Inside the cottage, someone stirs beneath the blankets of wool and straw. The fire is nothing but ash now. The air bites at their fingers before they even rise. Their breath hangs in the room, a pale cloud that fades before it reaches the ceiling. There's no luxury of lingering. The fire must live again. The day must begin. A few coals are dug out from under the ashes, a handful of kindling placed gently over them. Then comes the quiet prayer every peasant whispered in winter. Please catch. If the fire refused, the whole house would stay frozen for hours. When the flames return, life begins to move. The woman kneads dark, coarse dough, a mix of rye and barley. It will bake on the hot stone near the fire, flat and heavy, but it will fill the stomach. The man steps outside to fetch water. The bucket creaks. The well is half frozen. He breaks the thin layer of ice with a stick, wincing as the cold water splashes onto his hands. There are no real chores in winter, only necessities. Feed the animals, patch the roof where snow has crept in, mend a torn sleeve, spin more wool if light allows. Children help too, gathering bits of straw from the floor, chasing away hens that wander near the fire, or simply huddling close, listening to the stories their elders tell. Because in winter, stories were the hearths of the mind, old tales about kings and saints, ghosts and miracles, told in voices low and slow, while outside the world lay silent under snow. The hours drag on. By midday the sky is still pale, the village almost asleep. Even the sound of footsteps is soft, muted by the frozen earth. And then, evening again. The fire burns low, the wind returns, and the same slow ritual begins, feeding the flame, breaking bread, whispering a prayer for another quiet night. When the world outside turns white and still, people begin to look inward, toward each other, and toward the heavens. Faith wasn't a part of medieval life, it was life. It shaped every season, every thought, every sound of the church bell drifting through the cold air. Even on the coldest mornings, when frost clung to every tree, a few villagers would walk slowly to the small stone chapel at the edge of the fields. Their boots crunched on the snow. Their breath rose like incense in the grey light. The church was simple, bare walls, wooden benches, a faint smell of wax and smoke, but it was warm in its own way, not in temperature, but in spirit. The priest's voice echoed softly through the space, Latin words half understood, but deeply felt. To the peasants, each sound was a promise, that spring would come, that God still watched, that their suffering was seen. And after the service, they lingered, not to talk loudly, but to share warmth. Someone offered a crust of bread, someone else a jug of thin ale. Children laughed in whispers. For a few moments, the world didn't feel so hard. Back in the cottages, neighbours visited one another too. When work was done and the sun had vanished again, families gathered to share whatever they had. Sometimes a story, sometimes a song. A simple tune hummed beside the fire, filling the room with a fragile kind of peace. There was no entertainment, no noise, just voices blending softly, fading into the rhythm of crackling wood. Faith kept their hearts alive, and community kept their bodies warm. Together they made the cold feel almost kind. Outside, snowflakes fell endlessly, covering footprints before they could even fade. Inside, the peasants sat close, their faces lit by flickering orange light, their eyes heavy with the same quiet hope, that the night would end gently and that tomorrow the fire would still burn. Winter never leaves all at once. It fades, slowly, quietly, as if it's reluctant to let go. The first sign is sound, a single drop of water falling from the edge of a roof, then another and another. The icicles begin to weep, and the stillness of the frozen months finally starts to crack. Inside the cottages, people notice the light first. The mornings come a little sooner now. The fire still burns, but it feels less like a battle, more like a companion. The air smells faintly of thawing earth, a promise, thin and fragile, but enough to stir something in the heart. The villagers step outside carefully, their boots sinking into soft patches of melting snow. The world looks broken at first, mud, puddles, broken fences, and trees bare as bones. But beneath the cold soil, life is already waiting. They turn their eyes toward the fields. Empty now, but soon they will hold grain again. The rhythm of survival begins to change its beat, from enduring to preparing, from hiding to hoping. The animals sense it too. Cows begin to low softly in their stalls. Chickens stir and scratch at the thawing ground. Even the dogs bark more, feeling the new warmth in the air. Inside the cottages, windows are opened just a little, enough to let in a breath of fresh wind. Children laugh at the strange smell of wet soil, and someone hums an old spring song, half prayer, half memory. The hardest months are ending. They have made it through, not with strength alone, but with patience and faith, and 1,000 small acts of endurance that no one will ever remember. The fire that once meant life is allowed to fade a little now. Outside, the world will keep them warm, and so the long winter passes, not with a single sunrise, but through a slow unfurling of warmth and light. The snow melts into streams that whisper through the fields, and the frozen earth begins to breathe again. What was silent now hums with life, the distant bleating of sheep, the creak of wagon wheels, the laughter of children chasing each other through the thawing mud. Inside the cottage, the fire burns low, but the air feels gentle now. A woman opens the door wide, letting sunlight fall across the floorboards. Dust dances in the golden light. For a moment, it feels like the world is brand new. The peasants don't celebrate with feasts or fireworks. They simply return to their work, the same steady rhythm that kept them alive through the dark. They know another winter will come, but they also know they will endure it again. Because life in the Middle Ages wasn't about comfort or ease. It was about endurance, about finding warmth in small things, a spark, a prayer, a shared loaf of bread. When you look back now, it's easy to see their world as distant, hard, cold, unforgiving. But beneath all that, it carried something simple and timeless, the quiet strength to keep going, even when the nights felt endless. So as you lie here, listening to the wind in your own world, remember them. Those nameless souls who faced the darkness with nothing but firelight and faith. They remind us that warmth doesn't always come from flame, and peace doesn't always come from comfort. Sometimes it lives in the quiet, in stillness, in patience, in the soft rhythm of breath beneath a wool blanket. So close your eyes now. Let the world slow down. Let the fire fade and drift gently into sleep, safe, warm, and at peace, just like they were so many cold nights ago. The fire crackles softly in the hearth. Its glow has turned from gold to amber, from amber to red, and now to a faint shimmer of grey. The room is quiet, a stillness that feels ancient, like time itself has gone to sleep. Outside, the last of the snow drifts glisten under the pale moonlight. An owl calls from the forest edge. A thin trail of smoke rises through the thatch, curling into the cold sky before it disappears. Inside, nothing moves. The tools rest against the wall. The bread is gone. The people breathe slowly, deep in their winter dreams. In one corner, the embers pulse faintly, the heartbeat of the home. They will be fed again at dawn, but for now they glow just enough to keep the shadows kind. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it, the sound of peace, not silence, but the small, living hum of a world at rest, the creak of wood as it settles, the sigh of wind slipping through the shutters, the slow rhythm of sleep. Hours pass unseen. The stars turn over the village, ancient and unchanging. They have watched every winter, every birth, every death, every spark of light that tried to outlast the dark. And still the peasants sleep, wrapped in their wool and dreams. They have done what they always do. They have endured. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster stirs again. Its call echoes faintly through the frozen air, a promise that morning is on its way. The light will come, the fire will wake, and life, slow and steady, will begin once more. So as you lie here, listening to this ancient quiet, breathe with them. Let the weight of the past settle softly over you, warm, gentle, familiar. The night is long, but safe. The world outside is cold, but you are warm. Let the story fade now, like the last ember in the hearth. Let your thoughts drift, your eyes grow heavy, your heart still. And when the dawn comes, may you wake, rested, peaceful, and ready to begin again. Because just like them, you've made it through another night. The night continues, soft, endless and kind. The fire hums faintly in the corner, a quiet rhythm of crackle and sigh. Each sound fades into the next, blending with the slow breath of those asleep. Outside, the wind drifts through the fields, brushing against frozen grass, carrying the faint scent of pine and smoke. It whispers through the gaps in the walls, but inside, the warmth holds steady. Nothing changes quickly here. The world turns in small, patient moments, a flicker of flame, a shifting shadow, a single spark floating upward, then vanishing into the dark. Somewhere far away, A church bell tolls once. The sound travels through the night like a ghost, soft, hollow, fading into snow. Then silence again, a silence that feels full, not empty. The cottage sleeps, the village sleeps. Even the stars seem to rest, glowing faintly behind a veil of thin clouds. For hour after hour, the same gentle music plays. Fire, wind, and the heartbeat of time itself. No rush, no thought, just the steady breathing of a world at peace. If you listen long enough, you begin to feel the rhythm join your own. Your pulse slows, your breath deepens, your mind softens into the quiet. The cold outside no longer matters. The weight of the blankets feels heavier, safe, grounding. Each ember glows like a tiny sun, and in that soft light, the centuries disappear. You are no longer here, and yet you are everywhere. In the cottage, by the fire, beneath the same sky that has watched humanity sleep for 1,000 winters. The night stretches on, and you float within it, drifting through the warmth, through the stillness, through time itself. There is nothing left to do now, nothing left to remember or plan, just the quiet, just the breath, just the endless hum of peace. The fire crackles once more, a faint reminder that it's still alive, and so are you. The story doesn't end, it simply rests, circling softly like the smoke above the roof, carried gently away by the wind. So if you're still awake, let yourself fade with it. Let your thoughts drift into the same quiet sleep that has touched every soul before you. The peasants rest, the world rests, and now, so do you. The night drifts on, soft and unbroken. Hours lose their shape here. Time folds into itself like a blanket drawn close. The fire glows faintly in the hearth, embers pulsing with a quiet red light. Now and then, one cracks softly, sending a small spark upward, a brief star in a room made of shadows. The walls creak as the wind moves past, a gentle, steady sound, neither threat nor comfort, just the voice of winter speaking to itself. Outside, the snow has hardened into silver crusts. The moonlight rests on it, unmoving. Every branch, every fence post, every thatched roof wears a soft crown of frost. If you listen closely, you can hear the frozen world breathing, slow, deep, ancient. It is the same breath the earth has always taken, in every winter, for every soul that ever waited for dawn. Inside the cottage, the people sleep without stirring. Their dreams are simple, of fields green again, of warm bread and sunlight. But for now, they drift in that perfect in-between, neither fully here nor fully gone. The fire settles lower. A few embers wink out, but the warmth remains, trapped in wool and breath and memory. The dog by the door twitches in its sleep. The sound of its breathing joins the rhythm of the fire. Together, they form a lullaby older than words. Outside, an owl calls again. The note stretches thin, then disappears into the snow. Then silence returns, wide, deep, endless. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for anything. It simply is. You feel it now. The weight of the blankets, the slow rise and fall of your chest. You are part of this stillness, woven into the same quiet fabric that has held countless nights before this one. And as the hours drift by, you float between waking and dreaming, a soft balance, like the last ember refusing to fade. The wind sighs once more through the trees. The stars turn. The world breathes. Nothing changes. Everything endures. So rest here, for as long as you wish. Let the quiet keep you. Let the centuries slip by in peace. The night is long and endlessly gentle. The night has reached its quietest hour. Even the wind has grown tired now, moving in slow sighs between the frozen fields. The world feels weightless, a breath held for too long. The moon, pale and distant, hangs above the roofs like an old candle almost spent. Inside the cottage, nothing stirs. The fire has fallen to ash, but the stones around it still hold warmth, a memory of flame that lingers in the dark. The air smells faintly of smoke and straw, of wool and wood, of the life that hides beneath stillness. In the corner, a sleeping child turns, half dreaming of spring. Their small hand rests on the coarse blanket, their face soft in the dim glow. The mother nearby shifts slightly, listening even in sleep, a habit born from years of worry and care. Outside, a fox pads silently through the snow. Its steps are soundless, its breath rising in tiny clouds. The village is still, its cottages like resting beasts under a white shroud. Far away, the forest murmurs. Branches creak under frost. The earth makes small, secret noises. A world alive even when frozen. The stars wheel slowly above, turning the night in their patient dance. Each one burns with ancient fire, distant yet familiar, like sparks from the same hearth, scattered across the sky. Time moves differently here. It doesn't pass. It drifts. Each minute folds into the next, like snowflakes layering quietly on the ground. The peasants sleep through it all, their dreams light and untroubled. The fire will need to be fed again at dawn, but for now, they rest within the long breath of the season. The night holds them. The walls hold the warmth. The world holds its peace. The hours between darkness and light are the softest of all. The world is not asleep anymore, but it isn't awake either. It waits, quiet, patient, listening. A faint silver hue creeps along the window's edge. It's not sunlight yet, only the whisper of it. The frost on the glass begins to glimmer, a thin lace of ice that glows and fades with each passing breath. Inside the cottage, the air feels still and heavy. The last of the warmth seeps slowly from the hearthstones. Ash settles in a soft grey layer, a silent snow within the house. The family sleeps close, faces turned toward the center of the room, their shapes hidden under wool and shadows. Even in rest, there's a sense of waiting. The rhythm of sleep changes, deep and even, but softer now, as if their bodies know morning is near. Outside, a faint wind carries the smell of wet bark and thawing soil. Somewhere, far beyond the village, a stream begins to run again, a thin trickle of water breaking the stillness. It sounds like a secret being told to the dawn. A dog stirs by the door, sniffing the air before settling again. Its tail moves once, a quiet echo of life beneath the calm. The stars are fading now, retreating behind the soft veil of light that grows in the east. One by one, they go out, like candles gently blown away. The world feels as though it's holding its breath, caught in that fragile space between dream and day. The peasants will wake soon. They'll rise to rekindle the fire, stretch stiff arms, and step back into the slow rhythm of work and living. But for now, the night still belongs to peace. The wind sighs once more against the wooden walls, and the fire gives a final tiny spark, a red eye blinking open before closing again. The world is dim, but no longer cold. Something warm moves beneath the earth, beneath the sky, beneath the silence. It is the promise of morning, quiet and sure, growing stronger with every heartbeat of the world. The first light arrives quietly. It doesn't burst through the window or chase away the dark. It seeps in, soft as breath, folding itself into every corner of the cottage. The frost that covered the window begins to melt. Tiny beads of water form and slide down the glass, catching the pale gold of dawn. For the first time in hours, the color returns to the world. The roof beams glow faintly in the early light. The straw on the floor glimmers, and the air, once heavy and cold, now carries the faintest hint of warmth. The mother stirs first. Her eyes open slowly, as if the dream she leaves behind is too gentle to let go. She listens, not for danger, but for life. A sparrow chirps somewhere beyond the wall, a sound so small, yet it fills the room like music. The man beside her moves next, pulling himself from the tangle of blankets and cloth. He rubs his hands together, his breath forming clouds that fade quickly now. The air no longer bites as sharply as before. He crouches near the hearth, pushing away the ash until he finds a faint orange glow. There it is, the ember that never died. He feeds it straw, then sticks, then the small dry wood kept for mornings like this. Smoke rises, slow and silver. The room begins to breathe again. The children wake to the sound of crackling flame. They whisper to one another, their voices soft, still caught between sleep and day. The smallest one reaches toward the light, warming small fingers above it, eyes wide with wonder. Outside, the village begins to stir too. Doors open, the sound of a bucket on a rope, boots crunching on the half-frozen ground. Somewhere, a rooster calls, and its echo ripples through the valley. The long night has ended, but nothing rushes. There's no hurry, no noise, just the slow awakening of life itself. The peasants step into the pale morning, faces turned toward the light, breathing in the thin, cold air that feels almost sweet. Another day begins. Another winter morning survived. The fire inside the cottages burns brighter now, and the village hums softly to itself, alive once more beneath the endless sky. The morning moves slowly, as if the world itself is stretching after a long, deep sleep. A soft haze hangs over the village, not fog exactly, but a thin veil of smoke from the cottage chimneys, rising gently into the pale sky. Inside each home, the same quiet rhythm unfolds. The man tends to the fire first, feeding it with care, as though it were another member of the family. The woman wraps herself in a thick shawl and begins to stir the pot that hangs above the flames. The smell of porridge fills the room. Simple oats, a pinch of salt, a little milk if they have it. Sometimes, on good days, they add a drop of honey, a memory of summer tucked away in a jar. The children sit close to the fire, hands cupped around wooden bowls, their cheeks pink from the warmth. They eat slowly, watching the steam curl up into the air. Outside, the world is waking. A farmer opens the barn door. The wood groans softly as it swings. Inside, the animals shuffle and snort, their breath visible in the cold air. He moves among them with practiced steps, touching each one lightly, checking, feeding, listening. The cows give their milk in quiet rhythm. The sound of it, steady, gentle, is almost like a song. The man hums under his breath, a tune his father once sang to him, a tune older than memory itself. Beyond the barns, smoke curls from more chimneys. Footprints mark the snow, crisscrossing between homes and sheds and fields. A woman carries a bucket of water from the well, the handle creaking, her breath puffing out in small white clouds. Each movement is slow, measured, necessary. Every gesture, every task, is part of a rhythm older than any clock. There are no rushes here, no bells or deadlines. only the slow unfolding of a winter morning, the quiet hum of survival, and the deep calm that comes with knowing that life continues, even in the coldest of seasons. The sun climbs higher now, pale and distant, but bright enough to paint the frost in shades of gold. Children's laughter breaks through the stillness, soft, shy giggles carried on the wind. The day has truly begun. By the time the sun clears the trees, the village is fully awake. The stillness of dawn gives way to the gentle rhythm of work. There are no loud sounds here, no shouts, no engines, no hurry. Only the soft conversation of life returning to motion. Men pull on their wool cloaks and worn boots, hands already roughened by cold. They step outside, each breath rising like smoke into the pale light. The air smells of firewood and the distant sweetness of hay. A few gather near the sheds, checking tools, a dull blade to be sharpened, a broken handle to be mended. They work slowly, because the wood is stiff with frost, and the metal bites at their fingers. Others head toward the forest's edge. Axes rest on their shoulders, the sound of their boots soft against the frozen ground. They'll return before dark, arms full of logs, faces red from the cold, clothes lined with frost. Back in the cottages, the women begin their own work. Wool is spun by hand, the spindle turning rhythmically, its faint hum joining the song of the fire. Bread is kneaded and placed by the hearth to rise. A child rocks a cradle with one foot while sewing with quiet focus. Each task flows into the next, no rush, no wasted motion, just the calm precision of people who have done this 1,000 times before. Outside, a thin mist curls over the fields. The soil is hard, too cold for planting, but there's still work to be done. Men patch fences, mend roofs, and check the barns for leaks. Every nail, every knot of rope is a small promise against the winter's bite. Now and then, a laugh drifts across the still air, low and easy, the kind that comes not from joy, but from shared endurance. They've seen many winters, and they'll see this one through as well. Crows circle above the treetops, their dark wings flashing against the white sky. Far away, a church bell tolls once, then fades into silence. Hours pass like this, steady, quiet, each moment blending into the next like snowflakes joining on the ground. The light begins to soften again, turning the frost to silver. And as the day stretches on, the peasants keep moving, not hurried, not weary, just living, the only way they know how. As the sun begins its slow descent, the world turns softer. Shadows lengthen, colors fade, and everything seems to sigh at once. The light slips across the snow, glowing gold, then rose, before dimming into blue. Frost begins to form again on the edges of rooftops, and the air grows sharp, the kind that pricks the skin just enough to remind you that winter still rules. The peasants start to make their way home. The forest workers return first, carrying logs stacked neatly on sleds. Their faces are flushed, hands raw from the cold, but there's quiet satisfaction in their steps. The day's work is done. In the cottages, smoke rises once more. The hearths come alive, each one flickering like a small sun in the heart of the darkening village. The smell of burning pine mingles with the faint aroma of stew, onions, cabbage, maybe a bit of salted meat if fortune was kind. The women move softly through the glow of firelight, ladling soup into clay bowls, breaking bread still warm from the hearth. Children huddle close, their eyes heavy, their laughter slower now. The room hums with warmth and quiet voices. Outside, the world has gone still. Snow creaks underfoot, and the only sounds are the distant clink of a pail, the bark of a dog, and the far-off cry of an owl calling through the trees. The sky turns violet, then deep indigo. Stars begin to appear one by one, like pinholes in a dark blanket. The moon rises pale and thin, casting long silver lines across the village. Inside, the fire pops softly, its light dancing across faces tired but content. A man sets down his cup, leans back against the wall, and lets the warmth soak into his bones. The woman hums an old tune, a song her grandmother once sang on nights just like this. The sound drifts through the room, gentle as breath, wrapping itself around the sleeping children. Beyond the walls, the cold gathers again, but it can't reach them here. Not while the fire burns, and not while they have each other. Another day is ending, peacefully, as countless days have before. The fire burns low now. Its orange light flickers softly across the walls, painting slow-moving shadows that dance and fade with every breath of wind. Outside, the night has settled deep and heavy, the kind of silence that feels alive, as if the air itself is listening. Even the trees seem to hold still, their branches etched against the silver glow of the moon. Inside the cottage, the family lies close together. The mother hums once more, just a few notes this time, barely a whisper, and then she drifts away into sleep. The father pulls an old blanket tighter around them, his eyes half open, watching the final embers pulse like tiny hearts. He thinks of nothing and everything, the fields, the forest, the snow. The thoughts rise and fall, soft and slow, until they dissolve into the rhythm of his breathing. A dog shifts by the door, ears twitching at the faint creak of the wind. It lets out a sigh, a sound so human in its weariness that the night seems to echo it in sympathy. Beyond the village, a frozen stream murmurs quietly under its shell of ice. The sound is faint, like a lullaby sung by the earth itself, steady, eternal, unbothered by the cold. The stars wheel silently overhead, their pale light spilling across the snow, turning the world into a field of silver. No footsteps mark it now, no smoke rises. The whole village sleeps, wrapped in the same dark hush. In their dreams, the peasants walk through green fields again. The air is warm, the streams run clear. Children laugh among the flowers, and the wind smells of rain instead of frost. Dreams are the only place where winter cannot reach. They are small sanctuaries, brief, beautiful escapes that carry the weary heart through the longest nights. And so the village breathes in unison, softly, slowly, the fire fading to ash, the moon climbing high. The cold presses close to the walls, but inside all is calm. The quiet hum of sleep fills the air, a rhythm older than memory, older than fear, as steady as time itself. Midnight passes quietly, though no one counts the hours here. Time in the village is not marked by clocks or bells. It's measured by breath, by the soft rhythm of sleep, and by the slow turning of the moon above the rooftops. This is the coldest hour, the moment when even the fire seems to hesitate, and the air grows so still that it feels like the world itself has stopped. Frost spreads along the window's edge, a thin white lace that blooms and thickens, curling across the glass like frozen ivy. Each crystal catches the faint light of the moon, glimmering, fragile, beautiful. The thatched roof creaks as the cold settles in, the timbers shrinking just slightly, whispering their quiet complaint. Outside, the ground hardens, and the snow glows faintly blue under the stars. Inside, the cottage is a small island of warmth, barely enough, but enough still. The coals at the hearth pulse gently, and each tiny flare sends a flicker of light across the sleeping faces nearby. The mother stirs once, pulling a blanket higher, then settles again with a soft sigh. The baby beside her murmurs in its sleep, a sound so small yet so alive against the vast hush of winter. In another cottage, a man wakes briefly, not from noise, but from the cold biting at his hands. He rises, feeds the fire with two small logs, and watches the smoke twist upward into the dark. For a moment, he stands there, still quiet, listening to the soft crackle. Then he returns to his bed, the warmth spreading slowly again. Outside, the forest looms, tall and unmoving, its branches heavy with snow. An owl glides between the trees, its wings soundless, its shadow sliding over the frozen ground. The stars shine sharper now, brighter, as if the sky itself has turned to glass. Somewhere far away, a wolf howls, long, low and lonely. The sound carries over the hills, echoing across the sleeping land like a memory of something ancient. And then, silence again. Perfect, endless silence. This is the hour before dawn, the hour when the cold is strongest, but the promise of morning has already begun to stir beneath it. The world rests, suspended between dark and light, between fear and peace. And in that stillness, the peasants sleep on, their breaths rising like faint clouds in the warm glow of dreams. Somewhere beyond the hills, a faint shimmer begins to move along the horizon. It isn't sunlight yet, just a thinning of the night, a soft hint that the long cold is about to break. The world, still half asleep, feels it before it sees it. The air changes, not warmer exactly, but gentler. The frost still clings to every branch and window, but the edge of its bite has dulled. Inside the cottages, the fire has burned to ash, but the coals beneath still glow faintly, hidden under a thin layer of grey. Every so often, one spark flares, as if testing the air to see if morning has arrived. A rooster stirs somewhere, uncertain at first, a single call into the dark. Then another answers from across the valley. Their voices echo faintly between the wooden roofs, and in that sound, the first sign of life returns. The dogs lift their heads, ears twitching. A baby rolls in its sleep, sighs softly, and the woman beside it opens her eyes. For a moment, she doesn't move, just watches the faintest light begin to slip through the frosted window. She reaches for the blanket, pressing it close around her shoulders, then sits up slowly. The quiet feels sacred now, as if the world is holding its breath, waiting for the first color of the new day. Outside, the trees begin to show shape again. The deep black of their branches turns grey, and a thin mist rises from the snow. Every surface, the fences, the roofs, even the frozen fields, catches the dim blue light and returns it in a soft shimmer. The man wakes next. He sits up, rubs the sleep from his eyes, and looks toward the window. His breath fogs the glass, and for a moment he just stares, not thinking, not speaking, just watching the slow return of life. He rises, moves to the hearth, and stirs the ashes with a stick. A tiny spark leaps up, and he smiles faintly, as though the ember itself has greeted him. Soon, smoke will rise from every chimney again. Soon, footsteps will mark the snow. But for now, in this fragile hour between night and day, the village rests on the edge of light, quiet, waiting, ready to begin again. The horizon glows pale gold now, not a blaze of color, just a soft spreading warmth, like breath across glass. The sun is still hidden, but its promise touches everything. The tips of trees, the roofs powdered with frost, the faint mist that curls above the fields. A faint orange blush spills across the snow, and suddenly the world looks alive again. Shadows fade, the cold loosens its grip, and the night that seemed endless begins to melt away. A thin column of smoke rises from the first cottage, then another, and another. One by one, the chimneys wake, marking the slow return of life to the village. The woman by the hearth feeds the coals with fresh wood. The fire catches with a sigh, sending a golden flicker through the dim room. Her hands move with quiet care, each motion deliberate, each one part of the rhythm of survival. She stirs a pot of thin porridge, adds a pinch of salt, and sets a bowl near the edge of the fire to warm. Outside, the man steps into the early light, his breath fogging in the air, his boots crunching through the frozen snow. He carries an axe, a rope, and the steady patience of a man who has done this every day of his life. The frost glitters on his cloak, tiny jewels scattered by the hand of winter. The first rays of sunlight break over the hill. They touch the tops of the trees, then the roofs, then the faces turned upward toward the light. The snow sparkles like glass dust. The whole world seems to exhale. Children begin to stir, their sleepy eyes blinking at the brightness, their laughter soft and small. A girl steps outside, her breath swirling around her like mist. She cups her hands together to catch a patch of sunlight on her palms. The sounds of morning grow. A door creaks open, a bucket thuds against the well, a cow moos softly in the barn. It is not noise, it is life returning, gentle and unhurried. The peasants know the day will be long. The fields must be checked, tools repaired, animals tended. But for now, for this brief, golden moment, there is only peace. The sun climbs higher, turning the frost to dew. The smell of wood smoke drifts through the air, warm and familiar. And as the village moves once more, slowly, quietly, the coldest night feels far away, a memory fading into light. By mid-morning, the light has settled fully over the land. The sky, once grey and cold, now glows a soft, washed-out blue, a colour that feels clean, almost fragile. The air is still crisp, but no longer bites the skin. Each breath feels easier now, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and damp earth. The village hums quietly, not with noise, but with movement, a slow, steady rhythm of life unfolding. Men walk toward the fields, their boots leaving shallow marks in the melting frost. They move in small groups, talking little, their voices low and even, like the murmur of water under ice. A pair of boys carry bundles of straw toward the barns. The straw rustles with each step, the sound bright against the silence of morning. Inside, the animals shift in their stalls. A horse stamps its hoof, a cow flicks its tail, a hen clucks softly from a shadowed corner. Each motion is part of the day's quiet machinery. Nothing wasted, nothing rushed. The women gather near the well, their shawls pulled close, their breaths rising like smoke. They talk about small things, the weather, the bread, how the frost seems thinner this morning. Their laughter comes in small bursts, warm and fleeting, like sparks from a hearth. Farther off, the sound of metal rings out, a hammer striking iron at the blacksmith's shed. The rhythm is calm, not harsh or hurried, each strike separated by long, deliberate pauses. Even the work here seems to breathe. In the distance, a flock of birds lifts from the bare trees, a sudden burst of motion against the pale sky. Their wings flash in the sun, then fade into the open air. The village smells of life again, earth, smoke, hay, and the faint sweetness of thawing snow. It's not warmth exactly, but the promise of it. A promise that carries through every sound, every quiet movement, every simple task. Somewhere, a church bell rings once. Its echo ripples through the valley, soft and steady, as if marking not time, but peace. And so the morning stretches on, gentle and unbroken, a calm thread woven through the heart of winter. The sun climbs slowly, casting long, soft beams through the bare branches. By midday, the snow has thinned in places, revealing dark patches of earth beneath, a reminder that spring still waits, somewhere beyond the frost. The air feels gentler now. The wind has quieted, and for the first time in many weeks, the chill no longer bites deep. It brushes the skin instead, cool and tender, like an old friend who's learned to speak softly. The peasants pause in their work. Tools rest against fences. The woodsmen lay down their axes, stretching their backs, their breath steady and slow. From the cottages, a faint smell of stew drifts outward, onions, herbs, and grain simmering quietly. A smell that feels like home. They gather near a fire built from fresh logs, the flames bright under the pale sun. Hands reach out, palms open to the warmth. Someone passes bread, another shares a small jug of ale. They eat without hurry, without talk at first. Only the sound of chewing, of wood crackling, of wind moving softly through the trees. After a while the voices return, low, easy, filled with the rhythm of shared fatigue. They speak of small things, a neighbor's roof that needs mending, a child who took her first steps, a rumor of early thaw in the south. The laughter that follows is quiet, but real. The kind that slips easily between friends who've weathered too many winters together to need words. Overhead, clouds drift lazily, their shadows sliding across the fields like slow waves. The sun sits higher now, its warmth faint but kind, a light that does not rush, but lingers. A woman sets down a basket, unwrapping a piece of cloth to reveal hard cheese and apples. The fruit is wrinkled, stored since autumn, but it tastes sweet still, a memory of sunlight in the depth of winter. The children chase each other across the snow, their laughter carrying on the wind, their small footprints marking the white ground with uneven joy. For a little while, no one works. No one worries. The world feels balanced, as though even time has stopped to rest. And in that stillness, the peasants breathe. The smoke rises in thin lines toward the open sky, and the fields lie quiet, listening to the soft hum of life continuing just as it always has. The hours after noon come quietly, sliding in without sound or hurry. The air feels heavier now, not from cold, but from stillness. The peasants rise slowly from their brief rest. Hands brush crumbs from worn tunics. Tools are lifted again, and the rhythm of work resumes as naturally as breath. The sun, once high and pale, has turned softer. Its light now golden, spilling gently over rooftops and fences, catching the tips of frost like scattered sparks. In the fields, men repair the last of the broken fences. The wood is rough and splintered, but their movements are patient, measured. A single crow lands nearby, its feathers black against the white ground. It tilts its head, watching for a while, then lifts into the wind again, its cry echoing faintly across the valley. Closer to the cottages, a woman kneels near the stream. Though the water is thin and half frozen, it still moves, a silver ribbon whispering beneath the ice. She rinses a pot, her reflection rippling faintly, distorted by light and motion. The children help gather wood, their laughter soft now, less wild than before, as if even they can feel the quiet deepening around them. The dog trots alongside, sniffing at old snow, its tail wagging lazily. The air smells of earth and smoke and faint sweetness, a mix of thawing bark and the first hint of evening meals. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rings again, not urgent, not commanding, just a soft reminder that the day is leaning toward its end. The blacksmith's hammer falls slower now, each strike echoing through the village like a heartbeat. A woman hums by her window, her voice carrying through the chill air, joining the faint rustle of wind through the bare trees. And above it all, the sun drifts lower, turning the snow to liquid gold. Shadows stretch long across the ground, merging, softening, until everything seems to move in slow, gentle rhythm, as if the whole village were swaying to the same ancient unspoken tune. Soon the fires will be lit again. Soon the sky will fade from gold to grey. But for now, in these last warm breaths of day, the world feels quiet, content, and perfectly still. By late afternoon, the light begins to change again. It happens slowly, almost without notice, until suddenly everything glows. The snow no longer looks white. It shimmers in shades of gold and rose, as if the whole village has been brushed with colour. The cottages, the fences, even the smoke rising from the chimneys, all of it seems touched by warmth, by some quiet grace. The peasants begin to gather their tools. One by one, the day's small labours come to an end. Wooden handles are wiped clean, shovels leaned against walls, and baskets carried back home. There's no rush, no urgency, just a sense of knowing that night is near and the cold will soon return. A man stretches his back, his breath a pale cloud in the fading light. He looks toward the horizon, where the sun dips low behind the trees. For a moment, it seems as though the whole world has stopped, caught between day and dark. Children chase the last light along the paths, their laughter echoing softly between the houses. Their boots kick up bits of frost, tiny stars that sparkle and vanish before they hit the ground. A woman closes her shutters, pausing to watch the sky. It burns deep orange now, like the glow of a dying fire. She smiles faintly, then latches the window and turns toward the warmth inside. The smells of evening begin to drift through the air, roasting grain, baking bread, and the sharp, comforting scent of smoke. Somewhere, a lute plays, its sound faint and uneven, but somehow beautiful in its imperfection. The men walk home in small groups, their voices low, their laughter soft. They talk of the day's work, of weather, of nothing at all, because here, in this fading light, words don't matter much, only the rhythm of steps and the comfort of company. The world narrows as the light fades. The trees turn to silhouettes, the air to mist. Only the last thin streak of gold remains on the horizon, a line that trembles, then disappears. The day has ended, but in its stillness, it leaves something behind, a kind of peace that can only be found in quiet labor, in shared warmth, in the simple beauty of surviving another cold night. As dusk deepens, the village begins to glow from within. The world outside grows colder, but behind wooden doors and thatched roofs, the hearths come alive. Inside each cottage, the air hums with warmth and quiet movement. Fires crackle softly in stone hearths, casting flickering light across rough walls and wooden floors worn smooth by years of footsteps. The peasants gather close to the flames. Gloves are removed, hands stretched toward the heat. The sting of cold fades slowly. Fingers tingle, faces thaw, and shoulders relax. A pot hangs above the fire, its lid rattling gently as steam curls upward. The smell of stew fills the small room, root vegetables, a hint of barley, a scrap of salted meat. It isn't much, but after a day in the cold, it feels like a feast. Children sit on the floor, their faces lit orange by the flames. One hums softly, another dozes, their heads resting against their mother's lap. The faint sound of a spinning wheel hums nearby, a slow, steady rhythm, as wool becomes thread beneath careful fingers. Outside, the world has gone dark. Only the windows glow, small squares of light scattered across the sleeping valley. Through them, you can almost see the silhouettes of families at rest. A man mending a boot, a woman tending the pot, a child clutching a wooden toy. The wind brushes gently against the shutters, whispering through the cracks like a tired traveller. Sometimes it moans, and the timbers of the house creak in reply. An old, familiar conversation between wood and winter. A dog curls by the fire, its chest rising and falling in the dim glow. A pair of candles flicker on the table, their light trembling each time the door opens to the chill. In this small, golden circle of warmth, the outside world feels far away. The snow, the darkness, the endless cold. All of it kept at bay by flame, by company, by the simple strength of staying together. This is how they survive the coldest nights, not through comfort or plenty, but through closeness, through the quiet miracle of sharing warmth, one fire, one meal, one breath at a time. The hours drift softly now. The fire has burned low, its crackle gentler, its glow fading into a slow, breathing light. Most of the village has gone still. Inside the cottages, the last bits of work are done. The bowls have been cleaned, the tools put away, the embers stirred once more before sleep. A woman covers the pot, leaving it near the fire for morning warmth. A man checks the shutters one last time, feeling for any whisper of cold that might creep through. Then, with a nod to no one in particular, he settles down beside his family. They sleep close together, children in the middle, parents on either side, thick blankets of wool drawn high. The air is cool, but not cruel now. The fire's faint pulse is enough. From outside, the wind hums against the walls, a long, low song that seems to come from the earth itself. It slides over rooftops, through cracks in fences, around the edges of sleeping trees. The snow gleams faintly under the moonlight, blue, silver, quiet. Each roof looks dusted with glass, each field frozen into stillness. Somewhere far away, a church bell tolls once. Its sound travels slowly, as if moving through water. It fades, then leaves behind only the whisper of wind and the soft groan of wood shifting in the cold. In the barn, the animals sleep too. Their breaths form clouds in the dim air, steady, warm, alive. A horse snorts softly. A hen stirs in her nest, then settles again. The straw rustles, then quiets. Time loses shape in these hours. There is no before or after, only the gentle rhythm of sleep and the flicker of firelight painting soft gold on the beams above. The villagers dream of small things, fields in summer, warm bread, sunlight through leaves, dreams simple enough to keep the cold away. And outside, the world dreams too. The snow falls quietly, each flake catching the faintest light, before joining the rest in silence. Nothing moves now, nothing stirs, only peace, thick, still, and endless. Before the sun rises, the world begins to change. It's not sudden, not loud, just a soft shift, a pale breath of light seeping through cracks and corners. The embers in the hearth still glow faintly, a quiet red heartbeat in the dark. Thin wisps of smoke curl upward, lazy and content, as if even the fire itself is waking slowly. Inside the cottage, the air feels heavy with sleep. Blankets rustle, someone stirs. A soft yawn breaks the silence. For a moment, no one moves. The warmth of dreams still clings to them, and outside, the cold waits patiently. Then from the corner, the old dog lifts its head. Its tail thumps once against the floor, and the sound is enough. The day has begun. The man rises first. He moves quietly, his steps careful not to wake the children. He stokes the fire, adding a small piece of wood. The flame catches, glows brighter, and fills the room with golden light once more. A woman opens her eyes, blinking slowly at the glow. Her hands reach for the pot left near the hearth, still faintly warm, still holding the smell of last night's meal. She smiles softly, then pours in a little water, beginning again. Outside, the sky is shifting from black to grey, then grey to the faintest blue. The frost glitters on every roof, every branch, every stone. Smoke begins to rise from chimneys, thin and white against the morning. In the barns, the animals stir too. Hooves against wood, soft bleats, the sound of straw being moved. A rooster calls once, his voice sharp and lonely in the wide, frozen air. The first footfalls sound on the path, boots crunching the brittle snow, a steady, familiar rhythm. One by one, the cottages come alive again. Doors creak open, voices murmur, a new day breathes into being. And just like that, the endless cycle turns once more. Night yields to morning, silence gives way to motion, and the peasants, worn, quiet, steadfast, begin again. They survived another night, not through power or plenty, but through patience, through warmth, through the slow, steady faith that morning always comes, even in the coldest winter. And as dawn returns to the medieval village, the world seems to sigh, a long, gentle breath after the silence of night. Smoke rises in thin spirals above the rooftops, curling toward the pale sky. The frost begins to soften. The first light touches the edges of fields, the tops of trees, and the slow-moving river, turning everything to silver. The villagers move through the quiet with calm, practiced grace. Their lives, their routines, their small moments of warmth and struggle, they continue just as they always have. There's no triumph here, no grand ending, only endurance, only the steady rhythm of ordinary people meeting another cold morning with steady hands and quiet hearts. A child laughs softly, the sound drifting through the chill air. A woman hums as she folds her shawl. A man looks toward the rising sun and simply nods. The fire crackles again, brighter now, its light dancing across the walls, painting everything gold. The world has survived the night, and in its stillness you can almost feel the peace that kept them through the dark, the same peace that waits for you now. So let the sound of this quiet morning settle deep into your breath. Let the warmth of the hearth, the calm of the snow, and the slow rhythm of the waking village carry you gently toward rest. Because in every age and in every cold night, peace is found in the simple act of surviving until morning. And now, the fire glows softly, the wind has quieted, and the village drifts on into another gentle day. The days begin to blur together now. Morning, noon, and night all carry the same pale light, a dim, washed-out grey that never seems to fully brighten or fade. Winter has settled deeply over the land. Snow lies heavy on the thatched roofs, packed tight against the wind. The paths between the cottages have turned narrow, carved by careful footsteps, each one frozen into the earth like memory. Inside, life continues in quiet circles. The peasants have learned to move slowly, not from laziness, but from wisdom. Every movement, every word, every breath is measured, saved, stretched thin against the cold. Food grows scarce now. The barrels that once brimmed with grain show more wood than wheat. A handful of dried beans, a bit of salt pork, a crust of bread too hard to break without soaking. Still, they make do. They always make do. A woman kneels near the hearth, stirring a thin soup that barely covers the pot's bottom. Her hands are red and rough from the cold, but her movements are gentle, almost graceful. Beside her, a child watches quietly, his eyes following the slow turn of the spoon. He doesn't speak, just listens to the faint bubbling, the rhythm of survival. Outside, the wind howls again. It moves through the trees like a living thing, rattling shutters, whistling through cracks in the walls. The dog lifts its head and growls once, then settles back down. In another house, a man mends a torn boot by candlelight. The wax drips slowly down the side, forming small ridges like frozen rivers. His fingers move carefully, a stitch, a pull, a pause. It's quiet work, and that's the point. Quiet keeps the mind steady when the world outside feels endless. From somewhere across the snow, a faint song drifts through the air. Someone is singing, softly, without words, just a tune to fill the silence. It rises and fades with the wind, a fragile warmth that almost feels like prayer. In these long days of winter, the villagers do not wait for joy. They wait for light, for the slow lengthening of the sun, for the promise that one morning soon the frost will break and the earth will breathe again. Until then, they endure, with patience, with hands that never stop working, and with hearts that have learned to find peace in the quiet act of continuing. When the winter deepens, it isn't strength alone that keeps the villagers alive. It's kindness, the kind that doesn't speak loudly, doesn't expect thanks, and often goes unseen. One morning, the wind has howled through the night, and by dawn, her roof has partly caved under the weight of snow. The cottage stands at the edge of the village, half buried, its door jammed tight with ice. Without being asked, men from the neighboring homes appear. They carry shovels, axes, and ropes. No one gives orders. They simply begin.
Snow is cleared, timbers are lifted, and the roof, though cracked and weary, is patched enough to hold. Their breaths rise in clouds as they work, their faces red with cold. But even in this bitter weather, there is laughter, the kind that feels like smoke rising from a warm fire. Inside the cottage, a woman stirs the last of her flour into a small pot. She adds water, a pinch of salt, and places it near the flame. When the men return, she offers each of them a bit of bread, a sip of broth. It's barely anything, but in that moment, it feels like plenty. This is how they survive, not through abundance, but through sharing. A log given to a neighbor, a blanket mended for another's child, a few words exchanged in the frozen air. Simple things that keep the heart from freezing too. Later that day, a young boy walks from house to house, carrying small bundles of firewood. They're tied with twine, each marked with a faint cross of soot. He leaves them quietly by the doors of the older villagers, then disappears before he can be seen. The villagers pretend not to know who it is. They simply smile when they find the bundles, small miracles left in silence. That night, the firelight in every home seems a little warmer. The air still bites, the snow still falls, but the cold feels softer somehow. held back by the gentle strength of people who refuse to let each other face winter alone. And outside, under a pale, wide sky, the snow keeps falling, covering the village in quiet grace. Night returns again, slow and silent, spreading its calm over the frozen fields. Inside the cottages, the fires burn low but steady. Their light flickers across the faces of those gathered close, families, neighbors, a few tired souls who found warmth here for the night. It is in these hours, when the cold presses hardest against the walls, that stories begin. No one calls for them, no one announces a tale. They just rise naturally, like sparks from the fire. An old man clears his throat. His voice is rough, carved by years and smoke. He speaks of the time the river froze so thick that even the horses could cross it, and how, on the other side, someone found a loaf of bread still warm in a cart abandoned by travellers long gone. The younger ones listen with wide eyes, as though the memory itself were magic. A woman adds her own story, of a candle that burned all through one terrible storm, refusing to die, as if an unseen hand kept it lit. Each voice weaves into the next, soft and slow, until the room hums with old words and older silences. The children drift closer to the hearth, their heads resting against their mother's knees. The fire pops once, a sharp sound in the hush, and the shadows on the walls seem to move like gentle ghosts. Outside, the wind listens too. It presses its ear to the shutters, as if trying to remember the warmth of human speech. The old man smiles mid-story, his gaze unfocused, his voice lower now, like he's speaking more to memory than to those before him. He finishes, leans back, and the silence that follows is kind. No applause, no reply, just the sound of wood settling and the soft sigh of someone half asleep. In this world without books, without paper or ink, the stories live through breath alone, passed from lips to ears, from old to young, carrying the warmth of countless winters. And when the last tale fades into the firelight, no one moves to fill the silence. They simply sit there, listening to the soft hum of the flames, feeling the weight of the day slip quietly away. When the last story ends, the room settles into stillness. Only the fire speaks now, a soft crackle, a breath of heat against the cold that waits outside. The old man's voice has faded. The children, once bright-eyed, now drift into sleep, their faces calm, their dreams full of flickering light and voices that linger like echoes. The mothers pull blankets higher, the fathers lean back in their chairs, and the dog, faithful and drowsy, sighs near the hearth, its tail giving one last lazy thump before stilling. The cottage breathes quietly, as though the walls themselves have grown tired. A candle gutters once, then steadies. Its small flame wavers on the edge of shadow, painting the air gold for just a moment before thinning to smoke. Outside, the wind has softened. It moves slowly now, sliding through the bare trees, weaving between cottages like a curious ghost. The snow falls again, light this time, silent, graceful. Each flake turns in the air, catching what little moonlight slips through the clouds, and for a few heartbeats, the whole village glimmers. An owl calls from somewhere deep in the woods, a lonely sound, but not a sad one. It drifts across the valley, touching roofs, fences, the still white fields. In the barns, the animals rest, their slow breathing the only sign of life beneath the snow. A cow shifts softly in her stall. A horse exhales a warm, quiet cloud. The rhythm is steady, ancient, the same heartbeat that has echoed through countless winters. And in the cottages, the people sleep. Their dreams fold gently into one another like threads in a blanket, woven from the same silence, the same light, the same patient peace. The fire glows lower now, its edges turning to ash, its warmth sinking deeper into the stones. Soon it will fade completely, but not yet. For now, it still holds the night. It still holds them. And outside, the snow keeps falling, soft and endless, over a world at rest. The night begins to loosen its hold. Somewhere far away, the horizon softens, not with light yet, but with the promise of it. Inside the cottages, the fires have finally gone out. Only faint wisps of smoke rise from the blackened logs, curling into the chill air before vanishing. The warmth lingers, but only barely. It clings to the walls, to the blankets, to the air that still smells faintly of ash and wool. The villagers sleep deeply, the kind of sleep that comes after long work, after full silence. But even in rest, their bodies know the rhythm of survival. When the air cools, they turn closer together, finding warmth in shared breath. Then slowly, the cold begins to creep back in. It presses against the windows, slides across the floors, nips at fingertips and toes. A child stirs first, pulling the blanket up to his chin. A few moments later, his mother's eyes open. She doesn't move, just listens. The world is still holding its breath. No footsteps outside, no voices, only the faint hum of wind and the soft creak of the roof under snow. Then, a single sound, a rooster's call, distant and clear, cutting through the quiet like the first crack of morning. The woman smiles faintly. She reaches for the hearth, her fingers brushing the cool stones. With slow care, she gathers the grey ash, searching for any spark left behind. And there, a tiny ember, hiding deep in the coals, breathing softly. She cups her hands around it, feeds it a wisp of straw, a sliver of wood. The ember glows, trembles, then blooms into flame. The light spills out, touching her face, the floor, the air. Outside, the sky begins to pale, from black to blue, from blue to the faint grey of morning. The frost on the windows turns to dew, and for the first time in hours, the village exhales. Doors creak open, boots find the snow again, smoke rises once more, joining the cold air in soft, spiraling trails. The night has passed, and though the cold remains, so does the light, gentle, patient, and alive. The sun rises slowly, as if even it feels the weight of the cold. A pale light drifts over the fields, soft as smoke, touching the rooftops, the frozen paths, the faint outlines of distant trees. For a few moments, the village glows, not with warmth, but with stillness, the kind that feels almost sacred. Crows stir first, their wings cut through the morning air, dark shapes against a grey sky. Then the sound of wooden doors, the crunch of boots on snow, and the low voices of people beginning another day. A man steps out of his cottage, pulls his wool cloak tighter around his shoulders, and looks toward the horizon. The air burns in his lungs when he breathes, cold enough to make him wince, but clean, alive. He carries a small pail, heading toward the well. The rope is stiff with frost. When he lowers the bucket, the pulley creaks softly, a sound so ordinary, yet in the quiet of morning, it echoes like a song. Nearby, another man is already at work, chopping wood with slow, steady swings. The rhythm of the axe keeps time with the sound of distant bells, calling the village toward prayer. Inside the cottages, the women tend to small fires, warming water, stirring porridge made from barley and oats. The smell of smoke and grain fills the air, a scent that belongs entirely to survival.
Children sit near the hearths, rubbing their hands together, waiting for warmth to reach their fingers. They speak in whispers, their laughter small but bright, a spark of life against the dull grey cold. In one corner, an old man hums quietly as he repairs a pair of boots. His hands tremble slightly, but his face is calm. He's done this every winter of his life. Outside, the light grows stronger. The frost on the trees begins to melt, turning each branch into a string of tiny diamonds. Somewhere far beyond the hills, the sound of a stream returns, water, moving again after a long freeze. And so, the village breathes, not with excitement, not with hurry, but with quiet purpose. Every breath, every step, every sound of life feels like a prayer. The day has begun. By mid-morning, the village has come alive, not with noise, but with motion.
Men move through the fields, their breath rising in soft clouds. The soil is too hard to till, so they work with what winter allows, mending fences, checking traps, clearing paths between snowdrifts. Each sound carries through the still air, the thud of boots, the crack of ice underfoot, the distant bleating of goats. A woman walks toward the river, a wooden bucket swinging from her hand. The river isn't frozen solid. Not here. The water still runs, slow and dark beneath a crust of ice. She kneels by the edge, breaks the surface gently with a stick, and fills her bucket. When she stands again, the water shimmers like glass in the morning light. Farther uphill, children chase each other through the snow, their laughter echoing between the cottages. They fall, roll, and rise again, faces red, hands cold, spirits warm. An old man watches them from his doorway, wrapped in a rough blanket. He smiles faintly, as if the sound of laughter reminds him that spring will come, as it always does. By noon, smoke curls from every chimney. Inside the homes, bowls of thin soup and dark bread are shared in silence. The taste is simple, but it's enough. A pause between labors. In one house, a young couple sits by the window. They speak softly about the weather, the sheep, the roof that still leaks when it rains. But their tone is gentle, not complaint, just the language of daily life. Outside, the snow begins to fall again, light, slow flakes, turning the air white. It gathers on rooftops, on fences, on the quiet road that leads nowhere fast. The world seems to hold its breath again, as if afraid to disturb the peace. Somewhere, a bell tolls from the church, 3 slow chimes. The sound moves across the valley, soft and steady, like a heartbeat beneath the cold sky. And for a moment, it feels as if time itself has stopped to listen. As the sun begins to fade, its light stretches thin across the snow, a faint golden wash over a world of grey and white. The villagers know this hour well. It's the quiet edge between work and rest, between motion and stillness. One by one, they finish their tasks. A man gathers the last pieces of firewood, stacking them neatly by the door. Another tends to his animals, brushing frost from their backs, offering them grain and hay. The animals breathe deeply, their warmth rising in pale clouds. Even they seem slower now, calmer, as if the day's light has made them drowsy too. Farther down the path, a woman carries a lantern through the snow. Its flame sways with her steps, a small glowing star in the dusk. She moves carefully, the sound of her boots muffled beneath the softening air. Inside the cottages, fires are stirred to life again. The smell of burning wood returns, thick, sweet, familiar. The rooms glow with a low orange light, and shadows begin to dance on the walls. Children sit close to the hearth, their faces lit by the flickering flames. A mother hums softly, a tune older than memory, something passed down through winters long gone. An old man tells a story. His voice is low, slow, almost part of the fire's crackle. The children listen with half-closed eyes, their minds drifting between the story's words and the warmth wrapping around them. Outside, the snow continues to fall, a steady whisper against the roof. The village seems to sink deeper into itself, each home a tiny island of light in a sea of darkness. Somewhere beyond the trees, a wolf howls, not in hunger, but as if calling out to the cold sky. The sound echoes across the valley, lonely but beautiful. No one is afraid. They've heard that voice all their lives. It's just part of the night, part of the rhythm of living here. As the stars appear, one by one, the world feels smaller, quieter, safer. Inside, the fires burn low again. The villagers speak less now, their words soft, their movements slow. And somewhere, between wakefulness and rest, the night takes its place once more. Night settles like a blanket, thick, heavy, and still. The last glow of day disappears beyond the trees, and the village becomes a cluster of faint lights floating in the dark. The snow reflects the moon, turning every roof, every path, every fence post into a shape of silver. Nothing moves now except the soft drift of falling flakes and the faint curl of smoke rising from each chimney. Inside the cottages, the world is smaller, a circle of warmth and light surrounded by endless cold. The hearth burns low, its glow deep red, like the heartbeat of the room. Shadows sway gently on the walls, and every sound, a log shifting, a kettle hissing, a sigh in sleep, feels louder in the quiet. A woman mends a torn sleeve by firelight, her stitches slow, precise, steady as breathing. She pauses, listening to the soft wind outside. It hums against the shutters like a song with no beginning and no end. Her husband sits nearby, carving a small wooden spoon. The knife moves rhythmically, a whisper against the grain. Wood curls fall into his lap and catch the light for a moment before fading into shadow. On the bed, two children sleep side by side, cheeks flushed, hands tangled together, their dreams lost somewhere between snow and stars. Outside, the world glows faintly under the moon. The river is frozen now, its surface smooth and unbroken. The trees stand motionless, their branches dusted with frost, sparkling like glass. Far away, a bell tolls once. The sound drifts over the valley, muffled by the snow, but clear enough to remind them that time still moves, even here in the slow heart of winter. Inside, the fire flickers. The woman finishes her stitching. The man sets down his knife, and both sit quietly for a while, watching the flames, listening to the night breathe. In that silence, nothing feels harsh or cold. It's as if the entire world has exhaled, and everything, the snow, the stars, the people, the fire, exists in perfect balance. The night deepens, the flames fade to embers, and one by one, the cottages fall asleep again. Each heartbeat, each breath, folding softly into the rhythm of the dark. It is the coldest, quietest hour of all. That fragile space between night and morning, when even the stars seem tired. The village lies completely still. The snow outside has stopped falling, and the sky hangs heavy with silence. Inside each cottage, the fires have turned to ash. Only the faintest orange glow remains, a thin thread of warmth, just enough to keep the dark from swallowing everything. No one speaks, no doors creak. Even the wind has fallen asleep. The world feels paused, as if it's waiting for something gentle to happen. In one home, A candle still burns. Its light trembles quietly, casting golden ripples across the low beams of the ceiling. An old woman sits beside it, her eyes half closed, her hands folded in her lap. She isn't awake, but she isn't fully asleep either. She listens, not for sound, but for stillness, the kind of stillness that only comes when the earth itself seems to rest. Outside, the moon lowers toward the horizon, turning the snow to a soft shade of blue. The shapes of the cottages blur, as if the village itself is dreaming. Somewhere in the distance, a dog shifts in its sleep. The faint jingle of its collar echoes for a moment, then fades. A breath of wind passes through the trees, just enough to stir the frost, sending tiny crystals drifting through the air like silver dust. And for a heartbeat, it feels as though the world has forgotten time. No hunger, no work, no sound of life or labor, only rest. In this stillness, the peasant's dreams are simple: a warm sun, a green field, a loaf of bread on a wooden table. They dream of light, of laughter, of a day when the cold finally lets go. The old woman's candle flickers once, then fades out softly. The darkness closes in, but it isn't frightening. It's tender, complete, a final lullaby before the light returns. And in that deep silence, beneath the snow and the stars, the village sleeps, held by winter, wrapped in peace. Somewhere beyond the forest, a pale shimmer appears, so faint at first that it could be mistaken for a dream. It's not light yet, not truly, just a soft brightening, a quiet stirring in the farthest corner of the sky. The stars begin to fade, one by one, their glow dissolving into the grey-blue hush of dawn. The snow, once silver, now takes on a faint blush, as if the world itself is blushing awake. Inside the cottages, nothing moves yet, but the light, curious and patient, creeps through the tiny gaps in the shutters, spilling across the floors and over sleeping faces. A rooster calls once, low, uncertain, as though testing the morning. Then again, louder, and his voice carries through the valley, echoing off the frozen hills. Somewhere, a door creaks open. A man steps out, his breath turning instantly to mist. He looks toward the east and stands still for a long time, as if remembering what color looks like. The horizon glows faintly pink. Frost glitters on the rooftops, and the bare branches of the trees glisten like spun glass. The man rubs his hands together, his fingers stiff from the night, and whispers a small prayer, not to be heard, but to be felt. Behind him, a woman lights the hearth again. The dry wood catches with a sigh, and the smell of smoke returns to the air like a familiar song. One by one, the village wakes. The sound of boots on snow, the low murmur of voices, a child's laughter, quick and bright, and the world, which had slept so deeply, begins to breathe again. The fields are still frozen, the air still sharp, but something has shifted. There is light now, thin, trembling, but alive. It settles over the cottages, touches the church steeple, and spills across the valley like a quiet promise. Winter endures, but so does life. The sun finally climbs above the trees, pale, distant, and veiled behind a thin curtain of frost. Its light isn't warm, not yet, but it spills gently over the rooftops, melting the edges of the snow and turning the whole village into a painting made of gold and white. The day begins slowly. No rush, no sound of urgency, just the calm rhythm of living. Men head toward the fields, their boots sinking softly into the snow. They carry tools, ropes, bundles of straw on their backs. Their breath clouds the air as they walk side by side in silence. the only sound the crunch of ice beneath their steps. At the well, a group of women gather with wooden pails. They speak in low voices, laughing quietly between the pauses. Their cheeks are red from the cold, their hands cracked from work, but their laughter warms the space between them. The sound echoes faintly, bouncing off the stone walls and up toward the pale morning sky. Children help, their small hands carrying bits of firewood, spilling some along the way, then giggling as they chase each other through the frost. Their footprints pattern the snow like scattered stars. In the barns, animals stir, cows shift in their stalls, sheep bleat softly, chickens rustle their wings. Life returns to every corner, as if the entire village is waking in unison. Inside one cottage, a pot simmers over the fire. Steam curls through the air, carrying the smell of oats and smoke. A woman stirs slowly, humming a tune, something that feels older than words. A cat curls near the hearth, eyes half closed, tail flicking lazily against the floor. Outside, the sun glows a little stronger now. The snow sparkles like glass, and the air seems lighter, still cold, but no longer heavy. For a brief moment, everything feels still again, but not with the silence of night, with peace. The kind that lives quietly in the space between chores and thoughts, between breath and wind. And as the day unfolds, it carries that peace forward, through every sound, every motion, every small act of survival. This is life here, simple, steady, beautiful in its slowness. By noon the frost has begun to fade. The sun, though weak, leans a little closer to the earth. Its warmth is barely there, just enough to loosen the snow from the rooftops, to make droplets of water run down the eaves and glimmer like tiny beads of glass. The village feels lighter now. The air carries sound again, a hammer tapping, a goat bleating somewhere behind a fence, the hush of wind moving through bare branches. Men pause in their work, resting their tools against the fence posts. Their breath no longer clouds the air so thickly. One of them wipes his brow with a rough sleeve and smiles faintly, as though the sun itself is a small blessing. They speak in quiet tones, talking about little things, how the snow is thinning near the churchyard, how the stream has begun to murmur again beneath its ice. Nothing important. But in the calm rhythm of their words, you can hear a kind of gratitude. Inside the cottages, midday meals are shared, a bowl of porridge, a crust of bread, a handful of dried apples saved from the autumn. The smell of warm grain and wood smoke fills every corner. The children sit by the doorways, legs stretched toward the light, faces tilted up like small sunflowers. They laugh at nothing, at everything, at the sound of melting snow or a bird daring to sing. A woman hums as she mends a shirt, her stitches neat, patient, endless. The needle catches the light with each pass, flashing like a thread of sunlight caught in motion. Outside, the sky has turned the color of pale honey. The snow glows softly, and a faint mist rises from the fields. A quiet promise that the day will endure a little longer. The church bell rings once, slow and steady. Its tone moves through the valley like a wave of peace. For a moment, no one speaks. They just listen to the bell, to the melting, to the hum of life so fragile and so constant that it feels eternal. Then, almost at once, the spell breaks gently. The villagers return to their tasks, the sound of work blending with the whisper of the wind. The day goes on. The sun lingers, watching quietly from above, content to see this small, patient world continue as it always has. The light begins to change again. What was bright and white a few hours ago now softens into gold. The sun has started its slow descent, and the shadows stretch long across the snow. The village seems quieter, as if everyone can feel the day beginning to fade. A few villagers still work outside, gathering tools, tying bundles of straw, checking on the animals before the chill returns. Their movements are slower now, more deliberate, as though each motion is a way to say goodbye to the light. Near the edge of the forest, the trees catch the last warmth of the sun. Their branches glow, a faint orange flame in the sea of white. The snow beneath them glitters, alive with color that will vanish soon. Inside the cottages, shadows creep up the walls. Fires are fed once more, a soft crackle answering the fading hum of the day. A pot simmers again on the hearth, its bubbling low and rhythmic, like a heartbeat echoing through the room. Children's laughter drifts faintly from outside. They're still playing, throwing handfuls of snow that melt on their mittens, faces glowing in the last of the sun. Their mothers call them in gently, voices carrying through the cold air, not urgent, just warm, familiar. A shepherd returns through the snow, his cloak dusted white, his breath curling upward in thin trails. Behind him, the faint bleating of his flock fades into the distance. As he passes through the narrow path between cottages, he glances toward the sky. The light is dimming, but there's still a soft glow clinging to the horizon, a color between fire and ice. He pauses, just for a moment to watch, then nods quietly, as if in thanks, and continues home. Inside, candles are lit. The flame dances gently, casting golden halos on every wall. Someone begins to hum a tune again, low, steady, like the earth itself sighing before nightfall. Outside, a thin mist begins to rise. It curls between the trees, wraps around the rooftops, and softens the sharp edges of the world. The day exhales. The sky fades from gold to grey, from grey to blue, and before long, the first star appears, small, steady, and patient. The villagers know what comes next. They move quietly now, finishing their work, closing doors, settling into warmth. Another day in winter's heart is nearly done. The light finally slips away. What remains of the sun lingers only in a thin line of pink, resting at the edge of the hills. Then it too disappears. The village exhales once more, settling into the deep calm of evening. A soft hush spreads through the air. The sounds of the day, footsteps, voices, the faint ring of tools, fade one by one, like embers cooling in the hearth. Now there is only the crackle of fires, the low murmur of families, and the gentle rustle of the wind moving past the walls. Inside each cottage, the glow of candlelight grows stronger. It flickers on rough wooden tables, on iron pots, on tired faces softened by the warmth. A pot of stew bubbles slowly, filling the air with the smell of herbs and smoke. Bowls are passed around, hands reach across the table, and a quiet peace settles between them all. Outside, the snow reflects the firelight from the windows, turning the village into a cluster of golden stars. The mist that rose at dusk has thickened now, wrapping the homes in a soft, silvery veil. The children grow quieter too. They sit close to their parents, heads heavy with sleep, eyes following the slow dance of the fire. Their world has shrunk to this, a small, warm room, the hum of voices, the rhythm of comfort. An old man leans back in his chair, his eyes half closed, a faint smile on his face. He listens, not to anyone's sound, but to the harmony of them all. Fire, breath, wind, rest. In the distance, the church bell rings again, low, slow, a voice meant not to wake, but to bless the night. Each chime rolls through the valley like a gentle wave, carrying the promise of safety, of another day survived. The villagers bow their heads, some whispering short prayers, others simply closing their eyes, and for a long moment, nothing moves. Then the sound of a log collapsing in the fire breaks the stillness, a soft sigh from the heart of the home. The flames rise, bright for just a second, and then settle again. Outside, the stars return in full. The sky is clear now, black and endless, filled with quiet light. The village sleeps beneath them, safe and small, held in winter's patient hands. The night has deepened. The village lies still, a scattering of cottages beneath a sky so full of stars that it almost hums with light. The air outside is sharp and clean. You can see your breath if you step into the doorway, a pale ghost in the moonlight that disappears almost as soon as it's born. The fields are covered in frost, every blade of grass silver, every roof glimmering faintly as though brushed with powdered glass. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls, slow and hollow, its voice drifting across the sleeping fields. The sound travels through the cold like a memory, ancient and calm. Inside the cottages, fires burn low but steady. The last bits of wood glow red, sending out soft ribbons of warmth that move lazily through the air. A woman stirs in her bed, pulls the blanket a little higher, and listens to the wind touching the edges of the shutters. It's not frightening, just a sound that belongs to winter, a reminder that the world outside is vast and wild, but that inside all is safe. A dog sighs in its sleep, its paws twitching in some quiet dream. The faint rhythm of its breathing blends with the creak of the timbers, the settling of the snow on the roof, and the slow, deep breathing of those it guards. Out beyond the fields, a frozen stream glitters in the moonlight. You can almost imagine that if you listened closely enough, you'd hear the faint trickle of water beneath the ice, a heartbeat of the earth itself, refusing to stop even in the coldest months. The stars above seem closer tonight, as if they're leaning in to watch, each one a silent witness to the lives below, to the warmth, the struggle, the small victories that fill the quiet hours. No one in the village speaks now. No one moves. The whole world seems to have paused, resting, gathering strength for the long days ahead. And in that stillness, time itself seems to slow, stretching out, soft and endless, like the snow that covers everything in silence. The night has reached its quietest point. Even the wind has stopped whispering. What remains is a deep, gentle silence, the kind that feels almost alive. Inside the cottages, the last embers glow faintly, a slow heartbeat of orange light beneath the ashes. They will fade soon, but not yet, not until morning. Everyone is asleep now. The farmers, the shepherds, the children, each of them wrapped in warmth, their breaths soft and even. Dreams drift through the village like unseen snowflakes, touching every soul. Some dream of summer fields, others of harvest feasts, of the laughter that once filled these rooms. Outside, the moon begins to fall behind the hills. The stars dim one by one, and the sky turns the pale blue of early dawn. A thin mist curls along the frozen paths, rising gently from the earth, as if the land itself is sighing, content, rested, ready for another day. In a few hours, someone will stir, stretching their arms, blowing on their hands for warmth. A fire will be lit again. The first sound of morning, a rooster's call, a cart's wheel creaking in the snow, will mark the start of another ordinary day, and the world of the peasants, quiet and steady, will continue, season by season, year by year, each night a small victory over the cold. So if you're listening to this, somewhere warm and still, let that same calm settle into you. The world may be wide and restless, but for now, it's okay to rest. It's okay to drift, because even in the hardest winters, there is always warmth somewhere, a fire, a breath, a heartbeat still carrying on. Good night, and sleep well, traveler of time.